Well, the Buckeye football season's upon us. We'll break things down with our guys, Dave Holmes and Adam King of 10 TV, along with former Ohio State defensive back Tyvis Powell. You hear him on 97.1 The Fan. And, of course, our guy, Tim May, 97.1 The Fan, and Letterman Row. All right, this is going to be Jim Knowles' second year with his new defense at Ohio State. Dave, how much pressure is Jim Knowles feeling coming into this season?
On a scale from 1 to 2.1 million, about 2.1 million.
Where'd you get that number?
That's how much money approximately they're paying him to be the defensive coordinator. So for me, year one was really, really good. They saw improvement across the board. And let's forget what you saw against Georgia and Michigan for just a second.
How?
Hold on. Objectively speaking, they were better for 85% of the season.
Absolutely.
They were. The facts.
I agree.
Oh,
Facts.
they were.
True.
Yeah.
No, nobody's arguing.
But 2.1 million.
That's a big butt.
2.1 million, the return on investment is you got to beat Michigan, and you got to play better than that, give up 5 long touchdowns, lose that game to Georgia the way they did. So he has to be better. So the pressure for Jim Knowles is off the charts. Now, in his benefit, in his favor, I think he has the most returning talent that this defense has had in at least 4 years, maybe even longer. They're experienced, right where it counts. They're in the middle of the defense and the D ends. They have Denzel Burke. If he's back to freshman Denzel Burke, there's no reason this isn't a top 3 defense, but they were that for much of last year, just not when it mattered.
All right, I'm going to let you rebut that because you were just staring at him. What do you want to say?
Yeah, you're staring me down, Tyus.
Listen, I agree with everything that you're saying. I think he's under a lot of pressure this year as well. I mean, listen, you come to Ohio State, your issue is win the national championship. You're getting more talent here than you did at Oklahoma State.
Yep.
You got to find a way to win these games. If your offense is putting up that many points, at least you could do is hold your team to at least 28, 21, something like that. So I think that, it's a lot of pressure because the national championship will be won or lost with the production of this defense.
I think you nailed one thing real quick. It's that there's no excuses this year for Jim Knowles. Last year you could say, hey, it's the first year. Really, for the Buckeye defense, the last couple of years, you could say, well, they were dealing with new defensive coordinators, transitioning. Talent wasn't there. Everything is there this year for Jim Knowles. So it's all the pressure.
Tim, that leads me into the question for you. Year two, Ryan Day thinks this defense will play better because there'll be more of a familiarity. Do you buy into that? And from what we've heard so far, the guys, Jim Knowles flat out told me the other day, the guys know what they're doing now. They're not learning. They now know what they're doing.
Well, just think about that first coaches meeting in 2022. Perry Eliano and Tim Walton were introducing themselves to Jim Knowles. You follow my drift?
Yeah.
And then they were all introducing themselves to Larry Johnson. So just the familiarity of the staff, knowing what they're teaching, knowing how to get the right people on the field at the right time, that's part of the deal. But it's also, like you said, Jim Knowles' familiarity with his talent on hand. We saw some major mix-ups at times and some major mismatches at times in the secondary when they needed them, when they needed those things to be strong the most at the end of the year. And whether it was a player making a mistake, a player getting himself out of position, or just having a wrong call, all of those conspired to what you saw in the fourth quarter against Georgia and basically all day against Michigan. Now you, like you said, you don't have that excuse anymore. They're not looking at it. I mean, they've got almost everybody back.
Yeah.
That's huge. And I'm talking about not just the players, but the coaching staff. And then you got some young risers, Sonny Styles and C.J. Hicks, who are going to stir this drink.
Adam, and that takes me to the next thing, because how huge was that they did get all these veterans back? Dave alluded to it. We just heard Tim. But to me, the key is Tommy Eichenberg coming back. That guy is a throwback. He doesn't say a lot, but he is the leader of that defense, and I love the way the guy plays, and I think the defense will feed off to him. And he's going to be like a coach on the field this year. To me, that's huge.
I think when you look at Tommy Eichenberg, it's a perfect pinpoint of what this defense is to come this season. And for the first time, and I'll say it, I think that Ryan Day would admit it, the Buckeye defense has been missing an edge. Probably since that Chase Young, Jeff Okudah era, they've been missing a little bit of that silver bullet edge that people love to talk about. Every position on this defense, first of all, going into fall camp, we pretty much know who's going to be on the field. I mean, we finally now know that Sonny Styles is so good, he's just going to be out there. And that's what it needs to be. The best players need to play. And when you look at a guy like Tommy Eichenberg, you look at JTT, you look at Jack Sawyer on the end, and you talked about Denzel Burke. Denzel Burke could be a first-round pick if he gets back to who he was.
People still think he is.
This defense Really, they are all like Tommy, but Tommy just exemplifies it the most because he walks around grunting.
I asked Tommy the other day, I said, who has two healed thumbs now and is playing linebacker? And I wanted him to go me, because obviously he played the last game of the year with 2 broken thumbs. I mean, this guy is a warrior personified. Then you got Steel Chambers also back as a starting. Your two starting linebackers are back, but you got these rising guys. And I keep
You got to
bringing
get
his name
Hicks
up.
on the field.
I keep bringing C.J. Hicks's name up because you're going to see him. There's a lot of veteran there, and you got a lot of you can sprinkle in on this stuff.
Yeah. Tyvins, the guy you played for, Urban Meyer, loves a football team that has an edge. He loves a football team that is angry.
Yes.
The defensive guys, and you know those guys.
I do, very well.
And they've got feelings. They're proud, and they got their feelings hurt last year.
Yeah.
They saw everything that was said about them, that the defense let them down and all that. How angry, how big of a chip will be on those guys when they come in this season that they want to shut the critics up?
Well, it reminds me of us in 2013. When we had Braxton, Carlos Hyde, and all those guys. We got to the Big Ten championship and we lost to Michigan State. The defense was just an Achilles heel that year. I'm sorry, guys, we were. 2014, that whole offseason, that's all we heard was how terrible our defense was. The silver bullets are gone. So we spent that whole offseason saying, you know what, we're going to figure this thing out. We're going to get it back. We got a coaching change by the name of Chris Ash coming in and being co-defense coordinator with Luke Fickell. He simplified that defense to where you knew exactly what you had, and you can go point A to point B, 4 to 6, like Coach Meyer would say. When I think about this upcoming season, I think that they have the players that they need to get things done. There were a lot of injuries that were on that defense last year, so I will give them that. You guys were hurt, and that did affect you a little bit. But in the same breath, if the rule for football is if you go out on that field, you are 100%. I don't care what's wrong. They're not hearing no excuses. I think Jim Knowles has to do a better job of understanding what his strengths of his players are and put them in position to win and not what maybe necessarily what he did off in the past.
Here's what I want to know, and this for all you guys. We saw issues in the pass department. Was it personnel? Was it blown coverage? Was it simply mistakes? Was it maybe the wrong defense? Was it a combination of all?
I'd like to think
You're
You're
the guy. You're the guy.
Give us the pivot. Give us the pivot. I've seen this.
What is it?
He has a demonstration.
Start with Tyvus.
He has a demonstration. Do the pivot.
You're hilarious. All right, so listen. Cut it out. Cut that out. So when I look at the defense last year, I think that Jim Knowles had to do a better job of understanding what he had. If you're going to call cover zero for a lot of guys, for people that don't know, is when you don't have no safety help over the top. Zero means that it's 0 guys in the post. So you're sending 6 to 7 guys on a blitz. So your DBs are by themselves and man-to-man. That's fine to do. I wouldn't necessarily do it on a 1st and 2nd down. It would be a surprise to some offenses, but these teams were smart enough to pick that up. If you don't have the guys that can cover for that, you can't continue to call that. And I think he continuously put this secondary on the field by themselves, and they didn't have no help. And I would have been okay with it if our leading sacker had more than 6.5 sacks.
It was amazing. It was amazing. A defense with 3 safeties on the field. There was no safety deep so many times, or nobody there to turn back the play. I mean, he put all that into his blender, man. I know he's learned from it.
You and I have had this conversation, and I'm curious. You said in that scenario, 2014 championship game, you would have audibled. You would have said, hey, guys, we're not going to go.
Yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. Do you understand in a situation that it's, 4 minutes left in the game and we're up 14 points? All we need to do is not let them score. So what do? You keep the ball in front of you. If you hear your defensive coordinator call cover 0 and you sit there and everybody's questioning it, you are okay to make an audible.
So
and if everybody's on the same page, so if he said cover 0 and we said, no, we running cover 3 and everybody ran cover 3, that's fine because everybody's on the same page. We'll just say we didn't hear you.
This is a veteran. This is a veteran experienced defense. Chindy Checkwell brought that up on my podcast back in the summer. Eventually, the players on the field have to take ownership.
Yeah.
I mean, they have to buy in, but then when they know it's a bad call, by then, you're usually, you've played together for a couple of years, you're kind of all on the same page. You can like wink at a guy, and I'm going, and you're falling back and stuff. That's what you want to see develop with this defense this year, that no matter what, they understand what's at stake and makes the play.
Last couple things. At the end of the day, this is Ryan Day's football team. How involved is he week to week with the defense in preparation? As I said before, I think he's got a brilliant defensive mind. He schemes against them every day, the best defenses in the country. And how involved is he on game day?
I think that he's more involved with the defense because of everything that's at stake. You know, potentially his job could be at stake. So if I know that this could potentially be my last year, I'm in every single meeting. I need to know everything inside and out because if I'm gonna go out, I'm gonna go out with my cause. So I think he's definitely gonna pay more attention to what's going on the defensive side. However, it is still Jim Knowles' defense. I think he would do a great job of pointing out the weaknesses of his defense and how teams will go to attack his defense. And I think that's how he gets involved on game
Like
day.
Tavis and I just said earlier, I mean, defense, you can look at it as a possible reason why they haven't won maybe 2 national championships in the last several years. He knows he had to get that fixed.
I'm on record. I think this defense is going to get some revenge this year and some payback. I'll start with you. What do you see out of the defense this year?
Oh, I think this is the most talented Ohio State defense since 2019. I think absolutely at every position they have at some point a top 5 in the country player, and I think that's what you need. Back to the Ryan Day thing, I think where he gets involved in the defense is kind of that cover zero moment. Is where he goes 4 minutes in the game, what are we doing out here? No, timeout, let's just run cover 3. I think otherwise he trusts Jim Knowles, that's where you bring in Jim Knowles, but you know, I think this defense is actually going to be much, much better.
What do you see out of it?
18 years of doing this, I don't think I've ever seen a player as inconsolable as Steel Chambers after the loss last year to Georgia. He was emotionally beside himself. I think he came back for this. I think Eichenberg came back for this. Jack Sawyer, JT Tuimoloau. To me, this defense is going to be the defense they should have been for 12 games.
I think they have a great chance to be the turnaround unit in the country. And that sounds funny, but as the year went on last year, you saw teams catching up with what they were doing, like Tyvis was talking about. Everybody falls into patterns. The one thing you don't want to be is ever in an unbreakable pattern. But I think they're much smarter about what they're doing, and not just the coaches, but the players. I think it may be the turnaround unit in the country.
I think the defensive line carries this team. I think last year they were just almost there. There's so many games that they were so close to the sack. I think they realized what happened last year. They take the next step, which then ultimately helps everybody else on the rest of this defense. The defensive line will be the strong point. Secondary will be back.
I agree 100%. It's easy to blame the secondary, but the best pass defense is a pass rush. I think it's coming. And I'll tell you one thing. I asked Jim Knowles the other day. I said, if at the end of the year you guys are holding the national championship trophy, would it surprise you? And he said, absolutely not. Let's go get it. I like that.
That's pretty good.
All right, guys, great stuff. Keep it on 10 TV, 97.1 The Fan for all your Buckeye needs.